The crack of Derek Hargrave's boot against the weathered front door echoed through the quiet morning like a gunshot. Inside the small, crumbling house, 7-year-old Ivy clutched her mother's trembling hand, feeling Claire's fingers go ice cold. "You got 2 minutes." Hargraves bellowed, his meaty fist pounding again. 2 minutes to get your worthless hides out of my property, or I'm dragging you out myself." Through the thin curtains, Ivy could see his shadow, tall, broad, menacing. Behind him stood 2 even larger men, hired muscle with arms crossed and faces carved from stone. Claire's breath came in short, painful gasps, her illness making every moment of stress a physical agony. She looked down at her daughter, tears streaming down her gaunt cheeks. "I'm sorry, baby," she whispered. "I'm so sorry I couldn't." "Time's up." The door shuttered under another violent kick. But then, beneath Hargrave's shouting, beneath the sound of her mother's quiet sobbing, Ivy heard something else. Something low and distant, like rolling thunder on a cloudless day. The window panes began to vibrate. The cheap dishes in the kitchen rattled against each other. Hargraves heard it too. His pounding stopped mid-strike. The rumble grew louder. Closer. Not thunder at all, but something far more deliberate. Something with chrome and leather and 100 hearts beating in perfect, furious synchronization. Hargraves turned toward the street, his confident sneer faltering. And over the horizon, like a wave of black leather and gleaming steel, they came. 24 hours earlier. The afternoon sun beat down mercilessly on the cracked asphalt of Murphy's gas station, turning the air above the pumps into shimmering waves of heat. Rex, iron fist, Blackwood stood beside his stalled Harley-Davidson, a monument of chrome and custom paint that now sat as dead and silent as a tombstone. At 6'4" and 260 pounds of muscle, scars, and attitude, Rex cut an imposing figure. His beard, streaked with gray, hung wild and untamed past his collarbone. Tattoos crawled up both arms, skulls, eagles, chains, and the distinctive emblem of the Iron Guardians Motorcycle Club across his massive back. His leather vest bore patches earned through 23 years of brotherhood, loyalty, and a carefully cultivated reputation that made grown men cross the street. Today, that reputation wasn't doing him a bit of good. "Where is it?" he muttered, patting down his jeans pockets for the 4th time. His leather jacket yielded nothing. The saddlebags, empty except for tools and a spare chain. His wallet, containing his ID, credit cards, and $300 in cash, had vanished sometime between the bar in Millbrook and this forgotten stretch of highway. The bike's fuel gauge read empty. His phone, still clipped to his belt, showed 2% battery and no signal. Rex wasn't a man accustomed to helplessness. The feeling sat in his gut like broken glass. Other customers at Murphy's gave him a wide berth. A soccer mom herded her kids back into their minivan before they'd finished filling up. An elderly man abandoned his coffee purchase mid-transaction and shuffled quickly to his sedan. The teenager working the register kept stealing nervous glances through the grimy window, one hand hovering near what was probably a panic button. Rex was used to that too. Fear was a tool, and he'd learned long ago how to wield it. But today, stranded and broke and increasingly furious at his own carelessness, the isolation felt heavier than usual. He was considering his options, none of them legal, most of them involving creative interpretations of borrowing, when a shadow fell across his boot. Rex looked down. The girl couldn't have been more than 7 years old. She was tiny, all knobby knees and elbows poking out from a faded yellow dress that had been patched at least 3 times with mismatched fabric. Her dark hair hung in 2 lopsided braids, one tied with a proper ribbon, the other with what looked like a twist of string. Her shoes were one size too big, held on with sheer determination and optimism. But it was her eyes that struck him, huge and brown and filled with a kind of worried compassion that seemed far too adult for her small face. She was holding something out to him. Rex stared. In her trembling palm lay a crumpled $5 bill, worn soft with age and use. It looked like it had been folded and unfolded 1,000 times, carried close and treasured. "Mister." Her voice was barely above a whisper, quavering with nervousness but underlaid with steel. "You look like you're having a really bad day." Rex found himself literally speechless, a rare occurrence. He glanced around, looking for parents, guardians, anyone who might explain why this child was approaching a man who looked like he'd crawled out of a nightmare. The parking lot remained conspicuously empty of concerned adults. "My mama says," the girl continued, taking a tiny step closer despite the way her legs were shaking. That bad days are better with a cold soda and something sweet. And maybe some gas. She gestured toward his bike with her free hand. That's a really pretty motorcycle. It'd be sad if it stayed broken. Rex's throat felt tight. He tried to remember the last time someone had offered him help without wanting something in return. Tried to remember the last time someone had looked at him and seen a person instead of a threat. He came up empty. "Kid," he managed, his voice rougher than he intended. "I can't take your money. But you need it." She said it with such simple certainty. And Mama says when people need help, you help them. Even if, she faltered, glancing down at the precious bill. Even if it's all you have. Something in Rex's chest cracked. This child, who clearly had nothing, was trying to give him everything. "Where are your parents?" he asked, gentling his tone as much as a voice like gravel could be gentled. "Just Mama. She's at home. She's sick today." The girl's face scrunched with worry. "She's sick a lot of days. But she still tries to work, and she still makes sure I eat. And she's the best mama in the whole world even when things are hard." Rex looked at the $5. Looked at the girl's earnest face. Looked at his empty tank and dead phone and felt the weight of 1,000 bad decisions pressing down on his shoulders. "What's your name?" he asked. "Ivy." She smiled, and it transformed her entire face, lighting it up like sunshine breaking through storm clouds. "What's yours?" "Rex." Like a dinosaur. Despite everything, the heat, the frustration, the sheer absurdity of the situation, Rex felt his mouth twitch towards something that might have been a smile. "Yeah, like a dinosaur." "Well, Mr. Rex the dinosaur, please take this." Ivy pushed her hand closer, the bill fluttering slightly in the hot breeze. "You can pay me back someday if you want. But right now, you need it more than me." Rex stared at this tiny child offering him grace he didn't deserve. Slowly, carefully, he reached out and took the $5, his huge, scarred hand dwarfing her small one. "Thank you," he said, and meant it more than he'd meant anything in years. Ivy's smile grew wider. "You're welcome. Oh, and Mr. Rex." She tilted her head, suddenly looking much older than her years. "My daddy used to ride too. A long time ago, before he went to heaven. He always said people who ride motorcycles look scary on the outside, but most of them got good hearts underneath. He said the loud bikes were just their way of making sure nobody could ignore them asking for help." She gave a little wave, then turned and skipped away, her two big shoes slapping against the pavement. Rex watched her disappear down the street, past the gas station, and toward a neighborhood that looked like it had given up on hope sometime around the Reagan administration. He looked at the $5 in his hand, still warm from being clutched so tightly. Then he walked into Murphy's, past the terrified teenager at the register, and bought exactly $5 worth of gas. As he filled his tank with the last precious drops, he made a decision. The Iron Guardians had connections all over this state. It would take him maybe 3 calls to find out who that little girl was, where she lived, and whether she really needed that $5 as badly as he suspected she did. Rex had a feeling he was about to find out something that would make him very, very angry. And when Rex got angry, the whole world had a tendency to shake. Ivy hummed to herself as she walked home, swinging her arms and hopping over the cracks in the sidewalk. The late afternoon sun painted everything gold, and even though her stomach was rumbling, lunch had been half a peanut butter sandwich split with Mama. She felt good about what she'd done. Mama always said kindness came back to you, like throwing a ball against a wall. You put good things out into the world, and good things bounced back. Ivy believed her. The neighborhood deteriorated the farther she walked from the main road. Paint peeled from houses in long, sad strips. Yards grew wild with weeds or sat bare and hard-packed as dirt. Broken cars slumped on cinder blocks. Windows were patched with cardboard and optimism. But Ivy didn't see the decay. She saw Mrs. Chen's flower boxes, brave splashes of color against the gray. She saw Mr. Washington's hand-painted mailbox shaped like a fish. She saw home. The house where she and Mama lived was smaller than most, set back from the street behind a chain-link fence that leaned drunkenly to one side. The blue paint had faded to something closer to gray, and the porch sagged in the middle, but Mama kept the windows clean and there were curtains. Actual curtains, not sheets, hanging inside. Ivy pushed through the gate, carefully latching it behind her. Mama was very particular about the gate and climbed the 3 porch steps. Inside, the house was dim and cool. Mama sat at the small kitchen table, her head resting on her folded arms. She didn't look up when Ivy came in. "Mama," Ivy dropped her voice to a whisper. Are you sleeping? Claire lifted her head slowly, and Ivy's heart squeezed at how tired she looked. Mama was only 29, but sometimes she looked much older, with dark circles under her eyes and skin that seemed too pale, too thin. Hey, baby. Claire managed a smile, though it looked like it took effort. How was your walk? Good. I saw a really big motorcycle, and a really big man who needed help. Claire's smile faded into concern. Ivy, you didn't talk to strangers, did you? We talked about this. He wasn't strange. Well, he looked strange, but he was nice underneath. Ivy climbed into the chair across from her mother. He was stuck, and I gave him the milk money so he could get gas. The color drained from Claire's already pale face. You, the $5? Ivy, honey, that was all we had until. She stopped herself, pressing her lips together hard. Ivy felt her stomach drop. I'm sorry, Mama. You just looked so sad, and you always say. No. Claire reached across the table, taking Ivy's small hands in her own thin ones. No, baby, don't apologize. You did exactly right. I'm proud of you. Her eyes glistened. You've got your daddy's heart, always thinking of others first. She stood, moving slowly, and opened the refrigerator. The light inside illuminated the sparse contents. A mostly empty jar of peanut butter, 3 eggs, half a loaf of bread, and a container of something that might have been leftovers once upon a time. No milk, no juice, no fresh vegetables or fruit or any of the things that filled the refrigerators Ivy saw on TV. We'll be okay, Claire said, more to herself than to Ivy. I've got that interview on Monday. If I can just. A violent coughing fit cut her off. She braced herself against the counter, her whole body shaking with the force of it. When she finally stopped, she didn't meet Ivy's eyes. Ivy had learned not to mention the coughing. It made Mama feel bad, and Mama already felt bad enough. Why don't you see if there's anything good on TV? Claire suggested, her voice rough. I'm going to lie down for just a minute. Ivy nodded, watching her mother shuffle toward the bedroom. The TV was old and only got 3 channels clearly, but she could usually find cartoons if she adjusted the antenna just right. She was in the middle of this delicate operation when someone pounded on the front door. The sound was so loud, so aggressive, that Ivy actually jumped. The antenna slipped from her hands, and the fuzzy picture dissolved into static. Claire, a man's voice, harsh and angry. Claire Montgomery, I know you're in there. Mama appeared in the bedroom doorway, her face gone from pale to stark white. Ivy, go to your room. But Mama, now baby, please. Ivy had never heard that tone from her mother before. Fear and steel mixed together in equal parts. She fled to her small bedroom and closed the door most of the way, leaving just a crack to peek through. Through the gap, she watched Mama approach the front door but not open it. Mr. Hargraves, Claire said, trying to keep her voice steady. It's Sunday evening. I thought we agreed. We didn't agree to nothing. The doorknob rattled violently. You gonna open this door, or am I gonna open it for you? Claire twisted the lock and opened the door 6 inches, the chain still engaged. Through the gap, Ivy could see a slice of a large man in an expensive-looking suit that didn't quite fit his bulky frame. His face was red, his jowls quivering with indignation. Derek Hargraves, their landlord. The rent's not due until the 1st, Claire said quietly. I have 3 more days. Rent. Hargraves laughed, but it wasn't a nice sound. Claire, honey, we're way past rent. I got a developer wants this whole block. You know what that means. The lease says I can terminate for health and safety violations. And sweetheart, this place is practically condemned. He pushed against the door, making the chain rattle. I'm doing you a favor, really. You shouldn't be raising a kid in a dump like this. Ivy's hands clenched into fists. This wasn't a dump. This was their home. I know my rights, Claire said, but her voice shook. You can't just throw us out. I'll call legal aid, You'll do what? Hargrave's voice dropped to something low and mean. You're 3 months behind on utilities. You got no job. You got medical bills stacked to the ceiling. Each fact landed like a punch. Nobody's gonna help you, Claire. Nobody cares about people like you. Through the crack in her door, Ivy saw her mother's shoulders slump. I'm giving you 24 hours, Hargraves continued. Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m., you and your kid are out. Take what you can carry. Anything left behind becomes property of the estate. He paused. And Claire, don't make me come back here with the sheriff. It'll go a lot easier if you just cooperate. He didn't wait for a response. Ivy heard his heavy footsteps retreating down the porch, then the sound of a car engine starting and driving away. Claire stood frozen for a long moment before slowly closing the door and sliding the chain back into place. Then she sank to the floor right there in the entryway, drew her knees to her chest, and began to cry. Quiet, hopeless sobs that shook her thin frame. Ivy crept from her room and sat down beside her mother, wrapping her small arms around Claire's shoulders. "It's okay, Mama," she whispered, even though she knew it wasn't. Even though she could see the stack of envelopes on the kitchen counter marked "Final Notice" in angry red letters. Even though she understood more than Mama thought she did about money and sickness and why the phone didn't work anymore. Claire pulled Ivy close, pressing her face into her daughter's hair. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry, baby. You deserve so much better than this." "I got you," Ivy said simply. "That's all I need." They sat together on the floor as the sun set outside, painting the walls in shades of orange and red. Tomorrow would come whether they were ready or not. Tomorrow, they would have to pack up their lives and walk away from the only home Ivy had ever known. But tonight, they had each other. Neither of them knew that 20 miles away, in a converted warehouse that served as the Iron Guardians clubhouse, Rex was making a phone call that would change everything. The Iron Guardians clubhouse occupied a former automotive repair shop on the outskirts of Oakdale. The main garage had been converted into a meeting space, complete with a long oak table scarred from years of slammed fists and spilled whiskey, surrounded by mismatched chairs that had been collected over 2 decades. Motorcycle memorabilia covered every wall, vintage signs, photographs of brothers who'd passed on, and the club's colors, an iron shield with wings, mounted above the table like a guardian angel made of steel. 23 members of the club sat around that table now, summoned by a single terse message from their president, Church. Now, Rex stood at the head of the table, his massive hands braced on the scarred wood. He'd made it home on Ivy's $5, barely, coasting the last quarter mile on fumes and fury. But he'd made it, and then he'd started asking questions. "His name's Derek Hargraves," said Marcus Ghost Williams, the club's secretary and the man most likely to know everybody's business in 3 counties. Ghost was lean and quiet, with graying temples and the kind of face people tended to forget 5 minutes after meeting him. A useful quality in his line of work. Real estate speculator. Buys up cheap properties, squeezes out the tenants, sells to developers. He's pulled this game in 4 different neighborhoods in the past 3 years. "Legal?" asked Thomas Tiny Rodriguez from his seat near the middle of the table. Despite his nickname, Tiny stood 6'6" and had the build of someone who'd spent his youth moving refrigerators for a living. "Verily," Ghost replied. "He knows how to work the system. Files the right paperwork, makes the right claims. By the time anyone figures out what he's doing, the tenants are already gone and the bulldozers are moving in." Rex's jaw tightened. "And the girl?" "Ivy Montgomery." Ghost pulled out a worn notebook, flipping to a page covered in his precise handwriting. "Ivy Grace Montgomery, age 7. Mother is Claire Montgomery, 29, widowed. Father was Daniel Montgomery, Marines, served 2 tours in Afghanistan. Died in a car accident 4 years ago." The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. Many of the Iron Guardians were veterans themselves. The club had been founded 40 years ago by a group of Vietnam vets who'd come home to a country that didn't want them and found brotherhood in chrome and leather. "Casualties?" someone asked quietly. "Drunk driver, wrong side of the road. Daniel died on impact." Ghost's voice remained neutral, but his knuckles whitened where he gripped his notebook. "Claire got a small life insurance payout, but medical bills ate through it. She's got some kind of respiratory condition, probably treatable, but she can't afford the medication. Can't work because she can't afford the meds. Can't afford the meds because she can't work." "Classic trap," muttered James Preacher Harrison, the club's chaplain and former theology student. "Poverty's got teeth, brothers. Once it bites down, it doesn't let go." "The eviction?" Rex asked. "Scheduled for 9 a.m. tomorrow morning." Ghost closed his notebook. "Hargraves has already sold the property to Westfield Development. They're planning a luxury condo complex. Groundbreaking is set for next week." Rex looked around the table at faces he'd known for years, decades in some cases. These were men who'd chosen the margins of society, who wore their colors and rode their bikes and lived by a code that the straight world didn't understand and didn't want to. But they understood loyalty. They understood protecting the weak. And they understood that sometimes the system failed people, and when it did, You had to build your own justice. That little girl gave me her last $5, Rex said quietly. The room fell silent. She didn't know me, had every reason to be scared of me, but she saw someone in need, and she helped. He looked at each of them in turn. When's the last time any of us got shown that kind of kindness? No angle, no strings, just pure. He struggled for the word. Grace. That's what her middle name is. Ivy Grace. And it fits. What are you thinking, Prez? Asked Carlos Wrench Santos, the club's senior mechanic and Rex's right hand for 15 years. Rex straightened to his full height. I'm thinking that little girl's father served this country, died protecting it, and now his family's getting thrown out on the street by some bottom-feeding real estate leech. His voice hardened to iron. I'm thinking we're gonna make this right. Gonna need more than muscle, Ghost warned. Hargraves has lawyers. He's got the sheriff's department in his pocket. At least 2 deputies moonlight as his security. Then we play it smart. Rex began to pace, his mind working through possibilities. Wrench, what's our treasury looking like? Wrench consulted his own notebook. The club kept meticulous financial records, a necessity when the IRS was always looking for an excuse to shut them down. We got about $38,000 in the general fund, another $12,000 in the charity account. The charity fund was the club's pride, money raised through toy drives, benefits for injured riders, help for families in crisis. It was the part of the Iron Guardians that the public never saw, the quiet good they did when the world wasn't watching. Ghost, can we buy Hargrave's note on the property? Ghost's eyes gleamed with understanding. He doesn't hold the note, he owns it outright. But, he tapped his pen against his chin. If we can prove he violated the lease terms, or that the eviction is illegal, we might be able to tie it up in court long enough to matter. How long would that take? Weeks, maybe months. But Rex, legal fees would eat through our funds fast, and there's no guarantee. Then we don't play legal. Rex stopped pacing, his decision made. We buy the girl and her mother a new place. Better place. Pay for the mother's medical treatment. Set them up right. The room erupted in voices, brothers talking over each other. That's gonna cost. What about Hargraves? He just wins. We can't save everyone, Rex. Rex slammed his fist on the table, and the room fell silent. We can save this one. This one little girl who showed more heart than all of us combined. We can do that much. He looked around the table again. I'm not ordering this. It's a vote. All in favor of using club funds to help Ivy Montgomery and her mother, say aye. The ayes came like thunder, unanimous and absolute. Rex felt something loosen in his chest, something that had been tight for longer than he could remember. All right then. Wrench, I want you to find a rental property in a decent neighborhood. 2 bedrooms, good area, safe for a kid. Pay 6 months up front. Ghost, research the mother's medical condition, find out what treatment she needs and where she can get it. Set it up and tell them we're paying. That still leaves Hargraves, Tiny rumbled. He's going to show up tomorrow morning expecting to throw them out. A slow smile spread across Rex's face, the kind of smile that had made men twice his size back down in bar fights. Oh, I'm counting on it. Because when he does, he's going to find something he's not expecting. What's that? Asked Preacher. Family. Rex straightened, rolling his shoulders. We ride out at dawn. Full patch. Every brother who can swing a leg over a bike. I want Hargraves to understand exactly who he's dealing with. Wrench grinned. Shock and awe. Shock and awe, Rex confirmed. The man wants to bully a sick woman and a little kid? Fine. Let's see how he handles 100 Iron Guardians telling him no. 100. Ghost raised an eyebrow. We've only got 23 members. So we make some calls. Rex pulled out his phone, fully charged now, thanks to the clubhouse solar panels. The riders of the highway owe us from that thing in Millbrook. The Sacred Steel Boys too. And the veterans MC will ride for a fallen Marine's family without us even asking. Understanding rippled through the room. The Iron Guardians weren't the only club in the region, and while motorcycle clubs could be territorial and competitive, they also understood solidarity. When one club called for help protecting someone who couldn't protect themselves, others answered. I'll make the calls, Ghost offered. Do it. Rex checked the time. 10:47 p.m. We meet here at 7 a.m. I want to be at that house by 8:30 before Hargraves arrives. Wrench, bring the rental agreement and keys. Preacher, bring whatever blessing you think fits. The rest of you. He paused, making eye contact with each man. Clean colors, best behavior. We're representing not just the Iron Guardians, but every rider Who ever helped someone without expecting thanks? Brothers, Preacher said quietly, standing and placing his hand palm down on the table. For Ivy. One by one. The other members stood and added their hands to the pile. 23 palms stacked together, scarred and tattooed, and marked by years of hard living, but united in purpose. For Ivy, they said in unison. Rex was the last to add his hand, covering all the others. For Ivy. And for her father, who wore a different uniform but fought the same fight. We ride at dawn, brothers. Let's make him proud. The meeting broke up, but no one went home. The clubhouse came alive with activity as members made calls, checked bikes, and planned logistics. By midnight, confirmations were rolling in from clubs across 3 states. The riders of the highway were sending 15 bikes. Sacred Steel promised 12. The veterans MC committed 22, including several members who hadn't ridden in months, but wouldn't miss this for the world. By 3 a.m., the total had reached 94 bikes. Ghost found Rex in the garage, running a cloth over his Harley's chrome until it gleamed like a mirror. 94 confirmed, with more maybes still calling back. We might actually hit 100. Rex nodded, not looking up from his work. The repetitive motion of cleaning was meditative, giving his hands something to do while his mind raced. You okay, Prez? Ghost asked quietly. That little girl looked at me and saw someone worth helping, Rex said. Do you know how long it's been since someone looked at me and didn't see a monster? Ghost was quiet for a moment. Yeah, he said finally. Yeah, I do. Her daddy died serving his country. Her mama's dying by inches because she can't afford medicine. And some parasite in a cheap suit thinks he can just throw them away like trash. Rex's hand stilled on the chrome. We've done a lot of questionable things, Ghost. Been a lot of rules. Maybe broken some laws. More than some, Ghost admitted with a wry smile. But this is right. This is what we're supposed to be doing. Yeah, Ghost agreed. Yeah, it is. Rex resumed his polishing. Get some sleep. Tomorrow's going to be a long day. Ghost didn't move. Rex, that $5. You still got it. Rex reached into his vest pocket and pulled out the crumpled bill, still warm from being carried close to his heart. Yeah, good. When this is over, you should give it back to her. Frame it or something. Remind her that grace exists, even in places you don't expect it. Rex looked at the $5, thinking of the tiny hands that had offered it without hesitation. Yeah, he said softly. I will. Ghost left him there in the quiet garage, surrounded by the tools of their trade. Motorcycles that roared defiance at a world that often didn't understand them, that gave them freedom and family when the straight world offered neither. Tomorrow, they would roar for someone else. Someone who needed them. Rex worked on his bike until dawn began to paint the eastern sky pink and gold. And as the sun rose, the rumble of engines began to build, not just from the Iron Guardian's garage, but from roads leading in from every direction, from highways and back roads and forgotten routes. The thunder was coming, and Derek Hargraves was about to learn what it meant to stand against a storm. Ivy couldn't sleep. She lay in her small bed, staring at the ceiling where glow-in-the-dark stars had long since lost their glow, and listened to Mama moving around in the rest of the house. Hacking. The sound of it was terrible, quiet rustling of clothes being folded, the muffled thump of books going into boxes, the soft clink of dishes wrapped in newspaper. Each sound felt like a tiny goodbye. Ivy had lived in this house her whole life. She'd taken her first steps in the living room, learned to read curled up in the window seat, measured her height against the kitchen doorframe every birthday, with Mama marking it in pencil. 7 years of marks, 7 years of growth, all about to be abandoned. She rolled over and pulled her pillow over her head, trying to block out the sounds, but that just made her more aware of Mama's coughing in the next room. Harsh, racking coughs that seemed to go on forever. Finally, Ivy gave up on sleep and padded out to the living room in her pajamas. Mama sat on the floor surrounded by boxes and piles of clothes. She'd been crying again. Her eyes were red and puffy. When she saw Ivy, she tried to smile, but it wobbled and fell apart. Hey, baby, did I wake you? Ivy shook her head and sat down next to her mother. Where are we gonna go? Claire's hand stilled on the shirt she'd been folding. I don't know yet. Maybe a shelter, just for a little while, until I can find work. What about my school? The question seemed to hit Claire like a physical blow. Her face crumpled. I don't know, Ivy. I don't know anything right now except that I've failed you. I've failed to keep you safe and warm and... You haven't failed, Ivy interrupted fiercely. You're the best mama ever. This isn't your fault. Then whose fault is it? Claire's voice broke. I'm your mother. I'm supposed to protect you. And instead I'm dragging you out onto the street because I can't even afford. She stopped herself, pressing her fist against her mouth. Ivy wrapped her arms around her mother's waist. Daddy would say it's going to be okay. Claire let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob. Your daddy was an optimist. What's that mean? It means he always saw the good in things, even when things were really, really bad. Claire stroked Ivy's hair gently. He believed the world was basically good. That people were basically good. That if you just held on long enough, help would come. Do you believe that? Ivy asked. Claire was quiet for a long time. Through the window, the moon cast silver light across their meager belongings, making everything look fragile and temporary. I want to, she finally said. I really want to. They packed in silence for a while. Ivy helped, folding her clothes carefully and placing them in the battered suitcase Mama had pulled from the closet. She tried to decide what to take and what to leave behind, an impossible choice. The stuffed rabbit Daddy had won at the county fair before she was born? Yes. The box of crayons that were mostly nubs? Yes, because Mama had bought them for her last birthday, and they'd been expensive. The chapter books she'd borrowed from the library and hadn't returned yet because they made her feel like she could escape into other worlds. She set those aside gently. They'd have to go back. She couldn't take them to a shelter, and besides, some other kid might need to escape even more than she did. Mama, Ivy asked as she closed the suitcase. That man I helped today? The one with the motorcycle. He had sad eyes. Like, really, really sad. But when I gave him the money, his eyes got different. Less sad, maybe. Or sad in a different way. Claire looked at her daughter. This small person who noticed things that adults missed. That was kind of you, baby. Even if we needed that money. She stopped herself. It was kind. Your heart is so big. Daddy used to say kindness is like throwing a ball against a wall. You throw it out, and it comes back to you. He did say that. Claire's voice went soft with memory. He believed it too. Do you think my kindness will come back? Claire pulled Ivy close, holding her tight. I think if there's any justice in this world at all, it will. But baby, you have to understand. Sometimes the ball takes a long time to bounce back. Sometimes it bounces somewhere you don't expect. And sometimes, she trailed off, unable to finish the thought. Sometimes it doesn't come back at all. But she couldn't say that to her daughter, couldn't steal that hope. I think it will, Ivy said with quiet conviction. I think Daddy's watching us, and he's going to make sure we're okay. Claire buried her face in Ivy's hair and cried, silently, so Ivy wouldn't hear, though of course Ivy heard everything. They finished packing as the night deepened toward morning. 3 boxes of books and clothes, 2 bags of kitchen things, the battered suitcase with Ivy's belongings, 1 banker's box containing every important document Claire owned, birth certificates, marriage license, death certificate, medical records, bills, everything they owned in the world, and it all fit into the trunk of a car they no longer had. We'll carry what we can, Claire said, more to herself than Ivy. Leave the rest. Maybe we can come back for it later if what? If Derek Hargraves had a sudden attack of conscience? If the universe decided to care about 2 people it had spent the last 4 years grinding down? Claire didn't finish the sentence. At 5 a.m., she made them breakfast, scrambled eggs from the last 3 eggs in the fridge, bread toasted carefully because they couldn't afford to waste a single burnt slice. They ate in silence, sitting on the floor because the furniture didn't belong to them and had to stay. Mama, Ivy asked around a mouthful of toast. What did Daddy look like? I mean, I know from pictures, but what did he really look like? When he smiled, Claire closed her eyes, pulling the memory close. When he smiled, really smiled, his whole face lit up. He had these dimples, right here. She touched Ivy's cheeks. Just like yours. And his eyes crinkled at the corners. He smiled with his whole self, like joy was this thing he couldn't possibly contain. Did he smile a lot? Every day? Even when things were hard. Even when he was scared. And baby, everyone gets scared sometimes. He found something to smile about. Claire smoothed Ivy's hair. You have his smile. Did you know that? Ivy shook her head. You do. Every time you light up, I see him looking back at me. It's like having a little piece of him still here. Claire's voice wavered. I wish so much that he could see you now. See the amazing person you're becoming. He'd be so proud. Do you think he knows? In heaven. I think if heaven is real, and if he's there, then yes. He knows. And he's probably driving the angels crazy trying to find a way to help us. Claire managed a real smile at that. Your daddy never met a problem he didn't think he could fix. They cleaned up breakfast, washed the dishes, and left them drying in the rack. The eviction notice said 9 a.m., but Hargrave struck Claire as the type to arrive early, just to catch them unprepared. At 8 a.m., they sat on the porch steps with their packed belongings around them, waiting for the axe to fall. The morning was beautiful, cool and clear, with birdsong filling the air. Neighbors were starting their days, unaware or uncaring that the Montgomerys were about to lose everything. The world kept spinning, indifferent to individual tragedy. Claire held Ivy close, breathing in the scent of her daughter's hair, trying to memorize this moment before everything changed. She'd failed at so many things, failed to keep her husband alive, failed to stay healthy, failed to provide for her child, but she'd gotten one thing right. Ivy was kind and brave and good, and no amount of poverty or hardship had changed that. Whatever happens, Claire whispered, I love you so much. You know that, right? I know, Mama. Ivy leaned against her mother's side. I love you too, and it's going to be okay. I know it is. Claire didn't have the heart to argue. At 8:30, they heard a car engine approaching. Claire's stomach dropped. Early, just as she'd feared. But the sound wasn't quite right. It wasn't the rough rumble of Hargrave's old Cadillac. It was deeper, louder. Multiple engines, not just one. Claire stood, confused, as the sound grew louder. It seemed to be coming from everywhere at once, building like an approaching thunderstorm. And then, around the corner at the end of the street, they appeared. Motorcycles. Dozens of them. More than dozens, scores of them, filling the street like a river of chrome and leather. The lead bike was massive, gleaming black with silver accents, and astride it sat the man from yesterday, the one Ivy had helped. Rex. But he wasn't alone. Behind him rode more bikers than Ivy had ever seen in her life, stretching back as far as she could see down the street. They moved in perfect formation, engines rumbling in synchronization, creating a sound that seemed to shake the very air. Claire grabbed Ivy's hand, uncertain whether to be terrified or confused or hopeful. Ivy, what did you do? But Ivy was smiling, the kind of smile her father used to make, joy bursting out from every corner of her face. I helped him, Mama, and now I think the ball just bounced back. Derek Hargraves considered himself a practical man. He'd built his fortune on other people's misery, and he'd learned long ago not to lose sleep over it. The world was divided into winners and losers, predators and prey, and he knew which side of that equation he preferred. This morning's eviction was nothing special. Just another day, another property cleared, another step toward the luxury development that would make him even richer. He'd done this dozens of times before. He pulled up to the small, shabby house at 8:55 a.m., 5 minutes early, with 2 hired men in the car behind him. Bruno and Vic were locals, neither particularly bright, but both large and willing to intimidate for $100 each. They'd done evictions with him before. The street was quiet, working-class houses showing their age and poverty. Good. That meant no one would interfere. These neighborhoods had learned long ago that fighting back was pointless. But as Derek stepped out of his Cadillac, he noticed something odd. The street wasn't empty. It was completely full. Motorcycles lined both sides of the road for as far as he could see. Big bikes, custom bikes, bikes that looked like they cost more than his car. And standing beside those bikes, arms crossed, wearing leather vests covered in patches, were men who looked like they'd stepped out of a prison yard or a war zone. Derek's confidence wavered. He'd expected to find a sick woman and a scared kid with their pitiful belongings packed and ready. Instead, he was facing what looked like an army. The front line of bikers stood directly in front of the Montgomery house, forming a human wall between the porch and the street. At their center stood the biggest man Derek had ever seen, easily 6.5 feet tall, built like a fortress, with a beard that looked like it could house birds and tattoos covering every visible inch of skin. This had to be a mistake. Wrong house, maybe. These bikers were probably here for some rally or funeral or Derek Hargraves. The giant's voice rumbled like distant thunder. Not a mistake, then. Derek tried to summon his usual bluster. That's right, and you are. Rex Blackwood, president of the Iron Guardians Motorcycle Club. Rex took a step forward, and Derek instinctively took a step back. I think you and I need to have a conversation. Behind Derek, Bruno and Vic were looking decidedly less confident. Bruno, who usually enjoyed intimidation work, had gone pale. Vic was edging back toward the car. I don't know what you think you're doing here, Derek said, trying to keep his voice steady. But this is a legal eviction. I have the paperwork, I have the sheriff's approval, and I have every right. You have the right to shut up and listen, Rex interrupted, his voice dropping to something cold and dangerous. See, something interesting happened yesterday. A little girl, 7 years old, scared out of her mind, but brave as hell, gave me her last $5. She didn't have to. She had every reason not to. But she did it anyway because that's the kind of person she is. Rex gestured toward the porch, where Claire and Ivy had emerged, staring at the scene in shock. That little girl's father died serving this country. Marines. 2 tours. Came home and got killed by a drunk driver before he could even adjust to civilian life. Rex's eyes bored into Derek's. That little girl's mother is dying by inches because she can't afford medicine. And you parasitic, bottom-feeding waste of oxygen. You thought you'd just throw them out on the street so you could make another dollar. Now wait just a minute, Derek tried. I'm not finished. Rex's voice cut through the air like a blade. See, when that little girl helped me, she didn't know I had 100 brothers who'd ride to hell and back if I asked them to. She didn't know we have resources. She didn't know we make it our business to protect people who can't protect themselves. He smiled, but it wasn't friendly. She just knew someone needed help. And she helped. That's called grace, Derek. I don't expect you to understand it. The other bikers had moved closer, tightening the circle. Derek found himself surrounded by leather and chrome and barely contained violence. This is illegal, Derek sputtered. You can't just, I'll call the police. I'll have you all arrested for intimidation, for threatening me. We haven't threatened anyone, said another biker. This one lean and gray-haired with eyes like a shark. We're just here supporting our family. Nothing illegal about that. Family? She's not your. She is now, Rex said flatly. As of this moment, Ivy Montgomery and her mother are under the protection of the Iron Guardians MC, the Riders of the Highway, Sacred Steel, the Veterans MC, and about 6 other clubs represented here today. You understand what that means. Derek didn't, but he was starting to get an idea. It means, Rex continued, that if you so much as think about harassing them, we'll know. If you try to file some legal action, we'll know. If you even drive down this street again, we'll know. And we'll respond accordingly. You can't tell me where I can drive in a public. We can tell you whatever we want. Interrupted a massive biker with a scar running from his eye to his jaw. Question is, are you smart enough to listen? Bruno and Vic had made it back to their car. Derek heard the engine start. They were leaving, the cowards. He was alone. Derek tried one more time to salvage the situation. I have a legal right to this property. The eviction notice is valid. If she doesn't leave, I can have the sheriff. About that, the gray-haired biker pulled out some papers. We did some research last night. Turns out your eviction notice cites health and safety violations, but there's no record of any inspection. Also turns out the lease you claim was violated actually has another 6 months on it. Also turns out that threatening to forcibly remove tenants without proper legal procedure is, and I quote, unlawful harassment. He handed the papers to Derek, who took them with shaking hands. We filed a complaint with the housing authority, the biker continued. They'll be investigating your business practices. All of them, including that thing in Riverside where you illegally condemned a building to force out rent-controlled tenants, and that situation in Oakmont where you somehow got the utilities shut off to an occupied dwelling. Derek's face went from red to white. How did they know about those? Here's what's going to happen, Rex said, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper, somehow more frightening than shouting. You're going to get in your car. You're going to drive away. You're going to forget this address exists. And if you're smart, you're going to start conducting your business legally from now on, because we'll be watching. And if I don't, Derek tried to sound defiant, but his voice cracked. Rex leaned in close enough that Derek could smell leather and motor oil and something dangerous. Then you'll find out what happens when 100 bikers decide someone needs to learn some manners. We won't touch you, don't need to. But your car might develop mysterious mechanical problems. Your office might get regular visits from code enforcement. Your business associates might start hearing interesting stories about your practices. Funny how word spreads in small towns, isn't it? He straightened up, crossing his arms. Or you could just leave these people alone and go find someone else to victimize. Your choice. Derek looked at the wall of bikers surrounding him. He looked at his car, now empty of backup. He looked at the papers in his hand that outlined legal troubles he really didn't need. He was a practical man, and practically speaking, This was a fight he couldn't win. Fine, he muttered. Fine. They can have the dump. It's not worth this headache. Wrong answer, Rex said. Try again. Derek swallowed hard. I apologize. I was wrong to try to evict them. I'll withdraw the notice. Better. Rex nodded slowly. Now get out of here. And Derek? If I hear you've pulled this game on anyone else in this town, we'll be having another conversation. Clear. Derek nodded frantically and stumbled toward his car. The bikers parted just enough to let him through, a gauntlet of leather and judgment. He fumbled with his keys, got the door open, and practically fell into the driver's seat. The engine roared to life, and he peeled away from the curb, tires squealing. The bikers watched him go in silence. When his car disappeared around the corner, someone started a slow clap. It spread through the group until the air filled with applause and cheers and the thunder of boots stomping against pavement. Rex turned toward the porch where Claire and Ivy stood frozen in disbelief. Sorry about the noise, he called out, his rough voice somehow gentle. We probably woke up the whole neighborhood. Claire couldn't speak. She just stared at this army of bikers who'd appeared out of nowhere to save them. But Ivy ran down the porch steps and straight at Rex, her small legs pumping as fast as they could carry her. Rex dropped to one knee just in time to catch her as she launched herself into his arms, wrapping her tiny limbs around his massive frame. You came back, she said, her voice muffled against his leather vest. You came back. Course I did, Rex said, his voice rough with emotion he hadn't felt in years. I made a promise, didn't I? Always keep your promises to little girls who help stranded bikers. Behind him, 100 bikers watched this tiny child embrace their president, and more than one had to wipe suspiciously at their eyes. Grace had bounced back, and it sounded like thunder. The street remained filled with motorcycles and bikers, but the atmosphere had shifted from tense anticipation to something warmer. Men who moments ago had been an intimidating wall of muscle and leather were now laughing, shaking hands, sharing stories. Rex stood slowly, still holding Ivy, who seemed disinclined to let go. Over her head, he made eye contact with Claire, who stood on the porch looking like she might faint. Mrs. Montgomery, he called gently. Mind if we talk? Claire descended the steps on shaking legs. Up close, Rex could see how thin she was, how the illness had carved away at her. But her eyes were full of the same fierce determination he'd seen in her daughter. I don't understand, she said. Ivy gave you $5, and you brought an army? Not exactly an army, ma'am. Just some friends who believe in helping people who deserve it. Rex carefully set Ivy down, but kept one massive hand on her shoulder. Your daughter showed me kindness when she had no reason to. I can't let that go unanswered. I can't pay you back, Claire said, her pride warring with desperation. I don't have anything. I can't. Nobody's asking you to pay anything back, interrupted the gray-haired biker from earlier, approaching with a friendly smile. I'm Ghost, the club's secretary. And ma'am, with all due respect, you're missing the point. Which is, you've already paid. Ghost gestured to Ivy. You raised a daughter who sees someone in trouble and helps, even when she's got troubles of her own. You've given the world something precious. We're just trying to balance the scales a little. Claire's eyes filled with tears. I don't know what to say. Don't say anything yet, Rex suggested. We've got some things to show you first. Wrench. A stocky biker with grease-stained hands stepped forward, carrying a folder. Mrs. Montgomery, my name's Carlos Santos, but everyone calls me Wrench. I manage the club's finances. He opened the folder, revealing paperwork. We've secured a rental property for you about 15 minutes from here. 2 bedrooms, good neighborhood, near a school that has excellent ratings. He pulled out a key and a rental agreement. 6 months paid in advance, with an option to extend. The landlord is a friend of ours. He's a good man. Won't pull the garbage Hargraves tried. Claire took the key with shaking hands, staring at it like it might disappear. This is too much. There's more, Ghost said gently. We researched your medical condition. You have chronic bronchitis that's developed into early-stage COPD, yes? Claire nodded, surprised they knew. It's treatable. With the right medications and regular care, you can manage it. Maybe even reverse some of the damage. Ghost pulled out another paper. We've set up an appointment for you at the Morrison Clinic. They're excellent, and they have a sliding scale for payment. We've covered the first 6 months of treatment, including medications. This has to cost. Claire's voice broke. I can't accept this. It's too much money, and I have no way to ever. Ma'am, said another biker, This one wearing a vest that identified him as part of the Veterans MC. His voice was soft but firm. Your husband was Daniel Montgomery, correct? Marines. Claire nodded, confused. I served with him. Not in the same unit, but I knew him. Good man. Great Marine. The biker's jaw tightened. He saved my life in Kandahar. Pulled me out of a burning vehicle after an IED hit us. I never got the chance to thank him properly. He looked Claire straight in the eye. This is me saying thank you. And if you tell me I can't help his family when I have the means to do it, ma'am, you're gonna break my heart. Claire covered her mouth with her hand, overwhelmed. Other bikers started speaking up. My sister had COPD. She suffered for years because she couldn't afford treatment. I'll be darned if I watch another family go through that. My kid goes to the school near your new place. It's good, real good. Your daughter will be happy there. We all got helped at some point. This is just paying it forward. Ivy tugged on Rex's vest. Mr. Rex, why are all these people being so nice? Rex knelt down to her level. You remember what you told me yesterday? About how your mama says bad days are better with a soda? Ivy nodded. Well, your mama's right. And sometimes, when people have really, really bad years, they need more than just a soda. They need other people to step up and help. That's what families do. But we're not your family, Ivy said, confused. Rex smiled. A real smile that transformed his scary face into something almost gentle. Kid, family isn't just blood. It's the people who show up when you need them. And you showed up for me when I needed it. So yeah, you're family now. If you want to be. Ivy thought about this for a moment, her young face serious. Then she looked up at all the bikers surrounding them, hundreds of pounds of muscle and leather and intimidation, and smiled. Okay, you can be my family. But I gotta tell you, I don't think all of you are gonna fit in our new house for Sunday dinner. The tension broke. Laughter rippled through the crowd of bikers, genuine and warm. We'll manage, Rex assured her. Maybe outdoor barbecues. Preacher stepped forward, a Bible tucked under one arm. Mrs. Montgomery, if you're willing, I'd like to offer a blessing for your new home. Nothing official, nothing you have to agree to. Just a wish for better days ahead. Claire nodded, unable to speak. The bikers formed a circle around the Montgomery family, Claire, Ivy, and now Rex, who'd been wordlessly adopted into their unit. Preacher opened his Bible but didn't read from it. Instead, he spoke from memory. Lord, we stand here today as witnesses to grace. We've seen a child's kindness ripple out into the world and return as something bigger, something beautiful. We ask that you watch over this family. Protect them from those who would do them harm. Guide them toward healing, toward hope, toward the future they deserve. And remind us all that we're stronger together than we ever are alone. Amen. Amen, rumbled 100 voices. As the bikers began to disperse, returning to their motorcycles, several of them stopped to press small gifts into Claire's hands. 20s and 50s folded up tight. Business cards with phone numbers, if you ever need anything. A teddy bear for Ivy that was nearly as big as she was. One elderly biker, his vest showing he'd been riding since the 70s, gripped Claire's hand gently. Your husband died protecting this country. We won't let his family fall through the cracks. You hear me? You've got 100 uncles now. We take care of our own. Ghost handed Claire another folder. This has all the information you need. Address of the new place, medical appointments, contact numbers for everyone who offered to help. There's also a list of jobs in the area that are hiring. No pressure, but when you're ready to work again, there are options. I don't know how to thank you, Claire whispered. Thank us by getting better, Ghost said simply. Thank us by raising that amazing kid of yours. Thank us by remembering that when the world seems dark, there are still good people in it. The engines began to start, a symphony of mechanical thunder. But before the bikers rolled out, Rex pulled out his wallet and extracted a familiar crumpled $5 bill. He handed it to Ivy. I think this belongs to you. Ivy took it, looking confused. But I gave it to you, and I'm giving it back. Not as payment, as a reminder. Sometimes the smallest acts of kindness can change everything. You changed my life yesterday, Ivy. I want you to keep this, and when you're old enough to understand it, I want you to remember that you've got the power to make the world better. One $5 at a time. Ivy looked at the bill, then at Rex, then at all the bikers mounting their motorcycles. Her small face grew thoughtful. Mr. Rex, when I grow up, can I have a motorcycle too? Rex laughed, a deep, booming sound that came from somewhere near his boots. Kid, when you grow up, I'll teach you to ride myself. Deal, deal. Ivy threw her arms around him one more time. One by one, the motorcycles roared to life. The sound was tremendous, shaking windows and setting off car alarms, but somehow it didn't feel threatening anymore. It felt like protection, like family, like the universe finally deciding to give the Montgomerys a break. Rex mounted his Harley last, giving Claire a final nod. 2 weeks from now, there's a charity ride to raise money for veteran families. We'd be honored if you and Ivy came. Ivy can ride in a sidecar if she wants. Claire nodded, tears streaming freely down her face. We'll be there. Good. Rex kicked his bike to life. Welcome to the family, Mrs. Montgomery. And with that, he led the procession down the street, a river of chrome and leather and roaring engines, leaving behind 2 stunned women and the promise of better days ahead. Neighbors had emerged onto their porches, drawn by the noise. They stared in amazement as the motorcycles disappeared around the corner, the sound fading gradually from a roar to a rumble to a distant memory. Ivy waved until the last bike was out of sight, then looked up at her mother. See, Mama? I told you it would be okay. Claire pulled her daughter close, holding the key to their new home in one hand and the folder full of possibilities in the other. Yeah, baby. You did. You absolutely did. The new house was small but clean, with working appliances and windows that actually sealed properly. It had a tiny backyard with grass that needed mowing and a tree that looked perfect for climbing. The neighborhood was quiet, with well-maintained houses and cars parked in driveways instead of on lawns. To Claire and Ivy, it might as well have been a palace. The Iron Guardians had helped them move in, carrying boxes and furniture donated by club members or purchased from thrift stores. By evening, the house looked lived in and loved. Rex had left before the unpacking was done, but not before pulling Claire aside. About the job situation, he'd said quietly. No pressure, but Wrench runs an auto shop on the east side. His secretary just quit. It's basic office stuff, answering phones, scheduling appointments, managing paperwork. Pays decent. If you're interested, come by next week and we'll talk. I don't know anything about cars, Claire had protested. Don't need to. You just need to know how to talk to people and keep things organized. Wrench says you seem like someone who can do both. Rex had smiled. Like I said, no pressure. But the offer's there. Now, 2 weeks later, Claire sat in Morrison Clinic waiting for her 3rd appointment. The inhaler they prescribed was already making a difference. She could breathe without pain, could walk upstairs without stopping to rest. The doctor said with continued treatment and medication, she could expect significant improvement within 6 months. Ivy sat beside her, swinging her legs and reading a library book about motorcycles. She'd become fascinated with them, asking questions about engines and chrome and what made different bikes sound different. Mrs. Montgomery? A nurse appeared in the doorway. Dr. Morrison will see you now. As Claire stood, Ivy looked up. Mama, after this, can we go to that barbecue place? Rex said he'd meet us there. Claire smiled. Over the past 2 weeks, their lives had transformed in ways she was still processing. She'd taken the job at Wrench's auto shop and discovered she was actually good at it. The money wasn't amazing, but it was steady and honest and enough to start building a future on. More than that, they'd gained something Claire hadn't even realized they'd lost: community. The Iron Guardians checked in regularly, but not smotheringly. Ghost called twice a week to see if they needed anything. Tiny had fixed their leaky kitchen sink. Preacher had brought over casseroles when Claire was too tired from adjusting to her new work schedule to cook. And Rex had become a fixture in their lives, showing up for Sunday dinners, teaching Ivy about motorcycles, the safe, age-appropriate version, and somehow managing to be both terrifying and grandfatherly at the same time. Yeah, baby, Claire said. We can go to the barbecue place, but you have to promise to eat some vegetables. Do French fries count as vegetables? No. Do onion rings? Still no. Ivy sighed dramatically. Growing up is hard. The appointment went well. Dr. Morrison was pleased with Claire's progress and adjusted her medication slightly. As they left the clinic and walked toward the bus stop, Claire's phone buzzed. A text from Rex, running late. Meet you at the place in 20? Claire texted back, no problem. See you there. They caught the bus and rode through town, watching the familiar streets slide past. Ivy pressed her face to the window, pointing out things that interested her. A dog being walked, an ice cream truck, the motorcycle dealership where Rex bought his parts. Mama, Ivy asked suddenly, are we still poor? Claire considered the question carefully. We're still not rich, baby. We have to be careful with money, and we can't buy everything we want. But we're okay now. We have a home and food and people who care about us. So maybe we're poor in dollars, but rich in other ways. Ivy thought about this. I think I like being rich in people better than being rich in dollars. Me too, baby. Me too. The barbecue place was called Smokey's, and it was a biker bar that had somehow managed to be family-friendly during the day. Rex was already there when they arrived, sitting at an outdoor picnic table, his Harley parked prominently out front. He waved when he saw them. How'd the appointment go? Good, Claire reported, sliding onto the bench across from him while Ivy climbed up next to Rex. Dr. Morrison says I'm responding really well to treatment. Good. That's real good. Rex looked genuinely pleased. So I got something to run by you both. What? Ivy asked, already eyeing the menu for the biggest burger she could find. You know how there's the charity ride coming up? The one I mentioned. They nodded. Well, we're gonna have kids riding in sidecars and on the backs of bikes. All safe, all supervised. And I was thinking, Ivy, if your mama says it's okay, maybe you'd want to ride with me? Ivy's eyes went so wide they seemed to take up half her face. Really? On your actual motorcycle? Yep. Got a helmet that'll fit you and everything. But he held up a hand before she could start bouncing. It's up to your mama. Both of them turned to look at Claire. Claire looked at her daughter's excited face, then at Rex's careful expression. This man who'd shown up like an avenging angel, who'd rallied an army to protect them, who'd given them a future when they'd had none. Are you sure she'll be safe? Absolutely. I've been riding for 30 years without a single accident. I'll keep her safer than she'd be in a car. Claire took a breath. Okay, yes. But Ivy, you have to promise to follow every single rule Rex gives you. No wiggling around, no. I promise. Ivy interrupted, practically vibrating with excitement. I promise, I promise, I promise. Rex grinned. All right then. It's a date. Charity ride is Saturday. We roll out at 10 a.m. from the clubhouse. They ordered food, burgers for Ivy and Rex, a pulled pork sandwich for Claire. While they waited, other bikers started arriving, members of the Iron Guardians and other clubs, all gathering for their usual Friday evening hangout. Ivy found herself passed from lap to lap, each biker telling her stories about rides they'd been on, places they'd seen, adventures they'd had. She listened with rapt attention, asking questions and absorbing everything. Claire watched her daughter bloom under all this attention, becoming more confident, more certain of her place in the world. It was a kind of healing that had nothing to do with medicine and everything to do with belonging. Ghost slid onto the bench next to Claire. How are you settling in? Good. Really good. It still doesn't feel real sometimes. Give it time. Eventually, you'll stop waiting for the other shoe to drop. Ghost smiled. You're doing great at the shop, by the way. Wrench says you've organized his whole filing system, and he can actually find things now. Claire laughed. It wasn't that hard. Everything was just kind of everywhere. That's Wrench for you. Great with engines, terrible with paperwork. Ghost paused. Listen, I wanted to give you something. He pulled an envelope from his vest and handed it to Claire. Inside was a check, made out to her, for an amount that made her gasp. What is this? The charity ride is specifically for veteran families. Daniel Montgomery's family qualifies. This is your share of last year's proceeds. We should have tracked you down and given it to you then. But honestly, we didn't know you existed until Ivy helped Rex. Claire stared at the check. It was enough to cover several months of expenses, enough to build a real emergency fund, enough to breathe. I don't know what to say. Say you'll accept it. Say you'll use it to build a life for yourself and that amazing kid. Say you'll remember that you're not alone anymore. Ghost's expression was kind. And maybe, if you're up for it, say you'll help us organize next year's ride. We could use someone with your organizational skills. Claire looked around at the gathering of bikers, at her daughter being passed between them like a beloved niece, at Rex teaching her the proper way to sit on a motorcycle, while it was parked and off, of course. Yeah, she said softly. Yeah, I'll help. I'd be honored to help. Saturday morning dawned clear and cool, perfect riding weather. By 9 a.m., the Iron Guardians clubhouse was packed with motorcycles, bikers, families, and volunteers organizing the charity ride. The ride would cover 60 miles, winding through scenic back roads and ending at a park where they'd have a fundraiser picnic. Last year, they'd raised $40,000 for veteran families. This year, with increased publicity and participation, they were hoping for 50. Ivy arrived with Claire, wearing new jeans, courtesy of Ghost, who'd bought them 2 sizes too big so she'd grow into them, and a t-shirt featuring the Iron Guardians logo. Rex had given her the shirt the day before, along with a small leather vest that matched his but sized for a child. On the back, in proud letters, it read, Honorary Guardian. Claire had cried when she saw it. Ivy had worn it to bed. Now, as they walked into the organized chaos of the pre-ride gathering, heads turned. There she is, Tiny called out. There's our honorary member. Bikers converged on Ivy, exclaiming over her vest, asking if she was excited, making sure she had everything she needed. Someone gave her a small bandana. Someone else offered her a juice box. A third person presented her with stickers to decorate her helmet. Claire stood back, letting her daughter have this moment. Rex appeared at her elbow. You doing okay? He asked. Yeah, just taking it all in. She looked at him. A month ago, we were about to be homeless. Now Ivy's got a whole biker club treating her like a princess. She earned it, Rex said simply. Kids got heart. The ride organizers called for attention, going over the route and safety rules. Children would ride either in sidecars or on the back of bikes, always with experienced riders, always with proper safety gear. There would be designated stops for bathrooms and water. Riders would maintain a safe speed and stay in formation. When it came time to pair up kids with riders, Rex called Ivy over. Ready? He asked. Ivy nodded vigorously, too excited for words. Rex fitted her with a helmet, a proper DOT-approved one decorated with silver stars. Then he showed her where to sit on the bike's passenger seat, where to put her feet, how to hold onto the handles built into his vest. Rule number 1, he said seriously. You don't let go. Ever. Not for anything. Understand. Understand. Rule number 2, you move with the bike, not against it. When I lean, you lean. Got it. Got it. Rule number 3, you enjoy every single second, because this is going to be amazing. Ivy grinned, so wide it looked like her face might split in half. Claire approached, camera in hand. Let me get a picture before you go. They posed. Rex looking somewhere between scary and proud. Ivy looking like Christmas morning had come early. Claire snapped several photos, her heart full to bursting. You take care of my baby, she told Rex. With my life, he promised. The lead organizer called out. Riders up. Engines roared to life all around them. The sound was tremendous, dozens of motorcycles creating a symphony of mechanical thunder. Rex mounted his bike carefully, making sure Ivy was secure behind him. Remember, hold tight and lean with me. You got this. I got this, Ivy agreed. Claire joined the other family members who'd be following in cars or waiting at the destination. As she watched her daughter prepare to ride off on the back of a motorcycle piloted by a man who looked like he could eat mountains for breakfast, she felt a strange mix of terror and trust. The lead bike rolled forward, and the rest of the procession followed in perfect formation. Rex and Ivy were about 15 bikes back, surrounded by other experienced riders. As they pulled onto the road and picked up speed, Ivy felt the wind rushing past, the rumble of the engine beneath her, the solid strength of Rex in front of her. She looked around at the other bikes, at the leather-clad riders, at the families waving from the sidewalks. And she laughed, pure, joyful, completely unself-conscious laughter. Rex heard it and smiled, the wind catching his beard and making it stream behind him. This, he thought, this is what it's all about. The ride was spectacular. They wound through tree-lined roads where leaves were just beginning to turn autumn colors. They passed through small towns where people came out to wave and cheer. They stopped at a roadside park where volunteers had set up water stations and snacks. At one point, riding down a particularly beautiful stretch of road with the sun painting everything gold, Ivy leaned forward and shouted over the engine noise, Mr. Rex, this is the best day ever. And Rex, who'd lived a lot of days and seen a lot of things, couldn't help but agree. 6 months passed like a dream. Claire's health continued to improve. With regular treatment and medication she could now afford, her breathing became easier, her energy returned. She was promoted to office manager at Wrench's shop, complete with a raise that allowed them to start saving money. Ivy thrived at her new school. She made friends, joined the art club, and started a motorcycle appreciation society that consisted of her and 3 other kids whose parents thought it was adorable. The Iron Guardians remained a constant presence in their lives, but in a comfortable way. Rex came for Sunday dinner most weeks. Ghost helped Claire set up a budget and savings plan. Tiny fixed things around the house before they even broke. Preacher made sure Ivy got to church events if she wanted to go. They'd become family in the truest sense of the word. But Derek Hargraves had not forgotten. He'd kept a low profile for months, stewing in humiliation and rage. The housing authority had investigated his practices and fined him substantially. Several of his properties had been condemned for actual safety violations. His business was suffering, and he blamed the Montgomerys. On a cold February morning, he made a decision. The bikers couldn't watch them forever. Eventually, there would be an opportunity for payback. That opportunity came when he saw Claire walking alone from the bus stop to her house one evening after work. No bikers in sight. No protection. He pulled up beside her, lowering his window. "Claire, we need to talk." Claire recognized the voice and immediately started walking faster. "I have nothing to say to you." "That's too bad, because I have plenty to say to you." Hargraves got out of the car, moving to block her path. "You cost me a lot of money, Claire. A lot of business. My reputation is ruined because of you and your biker friends." "You ruined your own reputation by being a predator," Claire said, keeping her voice steady despite her racing heart. "Now get out of my way. Or what? You'll call your scary biker buddies." Hargraves sneered. "They can't be everywhere all the time." He took a step toward her, and Claire instinctively stepped back. She didn't see the motorcycle approaching from behind Hargraves, didn't hear it over the sound of her own pounding heart. But Hargraves did. The Harley pulled up beside them, and Rex cut the engine. The sudden silence was somehow more threatening than the noise had been. "Problem here?" Rex asked mildly. Hargraves spun around, his face going pale. "This doesn't concern you." "Really?" "Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you're threatening a member of my family. And that very much concerns me." Rex swung off his bike, and suddenly the space felt much smaller. "In fact, I'm pretty sure we had a conversation about this exact situation 6 months ago. I wasn't threatening anyone. I was just blocking her path, making her uncomfortable, basically doing everything I told you not to do." Rex pulled out his phone. "Should I call the other brothers? Make this a group conversation?" "That won't be necessary," Hargraves said quickly. "I was just leaving." "Yeah, you were. But first," Rex took a step closer. "You're going to apologize to Mrs. Montgomery." "Sincerely." "I don't." "You really want to finish that sentence?" Rex's voice dropped to something dangerous. Hargraves looked at Claire, at Rex, at the phone in Rex's hand that could summon an army with a single call. "I apologize," he muttered. Louder, and with feeling. "I apologize, Mrs. Montgomery. I shouldn't have approached you. It won't happen again." "No," Rex agreed. "It won't. Because if I hear about you coming within 100 yards of Claire or Ivy, there won't be a conversation. There won't be a warning. There will just be consequences. Are we clear?" Hargraves nodded frantically and scrambled back to his car. As he drove away, tires squealing, Claire let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. "Thank you," she said. "How did you even?" "Tiny was driving past, saw what was happening, called me. I was 2 blocks away." Rex shrugged. "We told you we'd watch out for you. We meant it." Claire felt tears prick at her eyes. "I'm not used to this. People actually caring whether I'm safe." "Get used to it," Rex said gently. "That's what family does." 1 year after the day Ivy gave away her last $5, the Iron Guardians held their annual charity ride. It had become the biggest event of its kind in the region, with over 200 bikes participating and raising $90,000 for veteran families. Ivy, now 8.5, rode with Rex again, but this time in the place of honor at the front of the procession. She'd learned the proper hand signals, understood the etiquette of riding, and could identify different types of bikes on sight. Claire watched from the sidelines, healthy and strong, wearing a leather jacket that Preacher's wife had helped her pick out. She'd become indispensable to the club's charitable operations, organizing events and managing donations with the same skill she brought to Wrench's office. At the end of the ride, when they gathered in the park for the fundraiser picnic, Rex called for everyone's attention. "A year ago," he began, his voice carrying across the crowd, "a little girl taught me something about grace. She gave me her last $5 when she had every reason to keep it. She helped a stranger who looked scary because she saw someone in need." He pulled Ivy forward to stand beside him. That act of kindness started something. It reminded all of us why we do this. Not for glory or recognition, but because helping people is what families do. He pulled out a frame and turned it to show the crowd. Inside was the original $5 bill, pressed and preserved, along with a photo of Ivy and Rex from that first charity ride. "Ivy Grace Montgomery, I want you to have this. Because that $5, it changed my life. It changed a lot of lives. And I want you to remember, as you grow up, that you've got the power to change the world. One small act of kindness at a time." Ivy took the frame, looking at the preserved $5, remembering that day a year ago when she'd been scared but determined to help. "Thank you, Mr. Rex," she said. Then, louder, so everyone could hear. "Thank you, all of you. You're the best family anyone could ask for." The crowd erupted in applause and cheers. Later, as the sun set and families began to pack up, Ivy sat on a picnic table between Rex and her mother, watching bikers say their goodbyes and promise to see each other soon. "Mama," she asked, "do you think Daddy knows about all this?" Claire put her arm around her daughter. "Yeah, baby. I think he knows. And I think he's proud of you. I know I am. I just did what you taught me. Help people when they need it. And look what came back to you," Claire said softly. "Look what came back to all of us." Rex stood, stretching. "I gotta roll out. But I'll see you ladies Sunday for dinner?" "Absolutely," Claire confirmed. "And Rex, thank you. For everything. Thank me by living a good life. That's all the payment I need." As Rex mounted his Harley and rode into the sunset, Ivy leaned against her mother and thought about kindness and grace, and how sometimes the smallest gestures can echo across the world like thunder. She still had that original $5 bill, preserved and framed. But more than that, she had something money could never buy. A family that showed up when she needed them, a community that cared, and the knowledge that grace, once given, always finds its way back home. The rumble of motorcycle engines faded into the distance, but the warmth they'd brought remained, settling into the spaces where fear and despair used to live, filling the Montgomery home with the promise of better days ahead. And somewhere in the evening sky, if you believed in such things, a Marine watched over his family and smiled.